You look nicer than me.
I
You're
do.
all dressed up.
Why don't you have a nice shirt on?
Because it's Saturday.
Okay, so what do you want to talk about?
I don't really care.
You want to talk about your
Talk about dating?
since you're teaching on that on Sunday night.
Yep, I
Should we do
am.
that?
Sure, you can do that. Sounds good to me.
Hi everybody. This is a very special video. This is called the Nick and Jessica Show.
Oh wow, we've got it's a show. All right, sounds good.
And not like Nick Lachey or Jessica Simpson.
No one even knows about them anymore.
I
Like,
know.
they're like,
People made fun of us
They did.
when we were dating in high school because they were still a thing back then.
yeah,
And now they're not.
no.
But we are. So if you don't know me, my name's Jessica and homeschool our kids. We have 3 of them. And this is my husband.
I'm Nick. I'm her husband. Yeah, I'm a pastor live in a small town, Minnesota, and I'm an associate pastor, and I primarily work with youth.
Mm-hmm.
I'm also a seminary student. I been doing that forever, about rounding down forever. It feels like it's been a long time. I think by the time I graduate, Lord willing, next year, it'll be like 9 years in seminary.
Woo!
Yeah.
Oh man.
Yep. So.
You're working on your MDiv.
Mm-hmm.
And what else?
I've just recently enrolled in a postgraduate program through the University of Edinburgh. Yeah, it's complicated, but I'm enjoying it, so it's fun.
But
I like school.
And at
I'm
the
weird.
end of things, you'll have an MDiv and a master's in
Science.
Yep. of
In
philosophy.
In philosophy, science, and religion. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So that's cool.
Yeah.
Anyway, so we will be tackling issues like parenting issues, marriage, relationships, politics, Christian worldview, Christian pop culture, health and fitness, those kinds of things. So it'll be fun. So today, let's talk about dating. Because you're going to be teaching on that at the youth group shortly.
It's really
I just
good.
figured if we're going to talk about dating, this would be fun to show.
We've been married 8.5 years.
Yeah, so it'll be 9 in June. And I met you when I was 15.
Mm-hmm. In fact,
You were 16.
we have known each other, I think, or coming up, we'll have known each other longer than we haven't known each other.
Whoa.
Because we'll be 30.
Don't say that. I don't want people to
I know.
Ugh, I don't want to be 30. He's excited to be 30.
I'm not like excited. I just am not mortified of being older. Like when you're a pastor, no one takes you seriously until you're 30 anyway. Like Jesus didn't do his thing until he was about 30 years old. So
Oh my goodness.
it's true.
Okay.
It's true. So I don't mind it.
Anyway, yeah, you're well, you know this, but they don't know this, that you are the only guy I've ever dated.
Mm-hmm.
Like a real dating relationship.
Mm-hmm.
We dated for 3 months, like right after we met each other.
Yeah.
Sophomore year of high school. And then broke up because we were young and dumb.
Yeah, I think I broke up with you. But it was me. It wasn't like you were just mad at me.
I was just mad. You know, we were focused on school and
Right.
being kids and growing up.
Yep.
And having friends. Like, you know.
Yeah.
Anyway. So we did date a little bit in high school, and then things got more serious again towards the end of high school. And then we made things official finally freshman year of college. We ended up at the same school. That was not intentional. That just happened.
That's true.
I didn't go like following him to school. That's where we both ended up. And I was like, oh no, I'm going to have to go to college with this guy who I'm totally in love with. And he's going to find some other amazing woman to marry, and he'll get married right away, and I'll be single like till I graduate for sure. And that's honestly like that was my thinking. I was like, this is going to be torture. And now here we are.
I think the biggest misunderstanding,
that's us.
And I think that's when we dated for those 3 months or whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
That was like the snowball dance,
yeah,
like the
look at us.
winter dance.
Oh my gosh, sorry, it's so blurry.
Yeah. Yep, that's us.
Prom, senior year. We did plays, that's why we look crazy right there.
Mm-hmm.
And graduation and such stuff and things.
Yep. Well, I think the biggest issue that I see, and that hasn't really changed much since we were in school, is that kids start dating probably quite a bit sooner than they ought to. And that's kind of owing to the popular understanding and purpose of dating is to have fun. And when you think about, well, what makes a dating relationship different than just a good friendship you have with another gal or guy, or someone of the opposite sex or whatever. And it's the romantic component. Mm-hmm. And so the romantic element, and so that on Sunday we'll kind of unpack that. What does that mean? The romantic element is there, and it's not a bad thing. But if you misunderstand and misuse that romantic component, you can get yourself in a lot of trouble. And so what I see is kids getting excited about being kind of in an exclusive relationship with somebody where they can explore the romantic component of a relationship, but because they don't understand its purpose, they get into a lot of trouble. And when you're 13, 14, 15, and starting the romantic journey with somebody else, you're kind of setting yourself up for some heartache because you won't be able to gratify the goal, the end of that romantic aspect of your relationship. At least you shouldn't, according to scriptures, until you're married. So it culminates on the marriage bed, and that's a really wonderful, awesome thing. But if you start that too soon, it can get kind of dicey.
You're still giving a part of your heart.
Yeah, exactly. And that's the other thing, like, you need to consider that romance is more than just the physical component too. I mean,
yeah, absolutely.
You have to think of relational, emotional intimacy as well as physical intimacy. You're kind of playing with fire if you get that going too quick.
Honestly, I can't remember exactly why we did break up.
I recognize the cost in committing to a kind of a meaningful relationship. Sacrifices have to be made. You have to be committed to deepening that relationship. And when you're 15, I know I was working and doing play stuff after school, and like I felt like I didn't have time.
Right. No.
And it's not that I didn't have time, it's I didn't want to make the time.
Yeah. It wouldn't have been a wise use of our time at that stage of life.
Exactly.
And I think we did kind of realize that after the fact that we're too young to date. This isn't working. We didn't know how to communicate well either. Right. He had expectations and I had different expectations, and we didn't know how to talk about that with each other at such a young age when we're still trying to figure out like who we are.
Yeah.
Like I don't know who I am and what I'm called to do as an individual. So how am I supposed to find the one when you don't even know who you are completely yet? I don't know.
Yeah, it's hard. How can you really understand the commitment, what it takes if you're still trying to figure yourself out, and there's lots of other stuff.
We couldn't even drive yet.
Yeah. It's fun to have something special with somebody else. So I get that, and the romantic component is fun. It's exciting. It can get expensive too, but it's worth it, right? Like it's fun. So
buy her coffee.
Yeah, it adds up pretty quick, guys.
It's still an expense.
It is.
What do you think about dating versus courting?
How we use the term is kind of arbitrary. There isn't, like, the Bible doesn't give us a clear definition of what dating is. In fact, back then you had arranged marriages and whatever, and I'm not about to actually say that they were wrong, or they were totally off, or that somehow how we date in Western society today is somehow more advantageous or better. It's just different.
Yeah.
And so we need to be careful about putting before people the absolute best way to do dating, to do something that the Bible doesn't prescribe in detail. I think for the committed Christian, there's kind of two understandings of dating that I think make a lot of sense and make the most sense. One that's pretty popular is kind of the courtship model. And this is popularized by Joshua Harris's I Kiss Dating Goodbye, right? He was the author. Yeah. But that has had actually some negative impact.
And then there's the sequel, Boy Meets Girl, which is more about courtship.
But actually looking back, I think there has been kind of some pushback to that model, because if you place such a significant emphasis on courtship, then what that can do is it can get in the way of just having decent male-female friendships, because every friendship is seen or people suspect, they're courting. It's more than what it actually is. And so that's, I think, had a negative consequence too in Christian culture more broadly. So there is another model, so to speak, of when it comes to dating, and that's more casual. And what I mean by casual is not that you pursue romantic relationships with just anybody, but think about like back in the 1950s, when you say I'm going on a date. What did that mean? Well, it meant that you went and you had dinner with somebody one Friday night, and then somebody else another Friday night. And so you had that one-on-one time to connect and build a friendship, but it wasn't romantic per se, and it wasn't like a committed, exclusive relationship, at least not right away. And so I think there's actually a benefit to doing it that way. It's very different than how most people do things, but I think that there's merit to that, especially if you're not in a context where you're connecting with other Christian guys or gals. And I think it would support the shift we're seeing kind of to online dating, because you really don't know what somebody is like, what their profile is like. And is it wrong to go on a date with somebody you don't know? I don't think so. Is that considered courtship? No. Is it a date? Probably. Yeah. Because you're kind of still exploring if this person's going to be a good fit. And you're attracted to him. Otherwise, you wouldn't have consented to go on the date and that kind of thing. So it's complicated.
It's so complicated.
But I think there's kind of two different approaches that you can take, and they're both
that makes sense.
Legitimate. Or just ask your parents to set you up with somebody.
Ask your parents.
No. Probably wouldn't
Maybe.
fly. Yeah. But
in some cases that might work, but
I think one principle is just involving people into that relationship, including your parents. Don't just be so exclusive where your friends, parents, other people around you can't speak into your relationship. Inviting people in is a really helpful, guardrail, safety net.
Yeah, we have such an unusual story where we met in high school. We only dated each other, and then we got married. We dated seriously. We courted, I guess, for like a good 2 years.
Yeah, 2 years.
But it'd be interesting, our case is so unusual. That doesn't happen very often, to marry your high school sweetheart or somebody you grew up with. Most people do spend many years single. And when you're not in a college context or a large church where there's lots of other single people, how do you go about dating or finding a spouse if that's what you want and you're feeling called to? Like if you desire marriage, what do you do? And it's such a tricky thing nowadays because there aren't a lot of really awesome contexts where that's appropriate or acceptable, or people just don't understand because we keep changing our mind about what dating is and what it should look like. My heart goes out to people we know who are kind of struggling with that and wrestling through that, and we know a lot of couples that met online that did an online dating profile, and that's how they found their spouse. Good for them. There's nothing really wrong with that as long as your heart's in the right place. What else should we cover?
Kind of the main pitfalls is misunderstanding the purpose of romance, which is deepening the intimacy between the two partners. for the purpose of seeing that culminate in marriage. We see this in Genesis 2, when man shall leave his father and mother and hold fast to his wife, and the two shall become one flesh, being something that God has ordained, that is good, and it is right and fitting and proper as its place. Right. And romance plays a role in getting there and continuing that. And so we can't just, romance isn't like a plaything, right? It's not something you can just flippantly engage in. It's something that's purposeful and intentional, and you need to kind of handle it with respect. And then the second pitfall or warning was doing it too early, starting romance too early. And we see this in the Song of Solomon or Song of Songs, where, you know, the refrain happens 3 times, you know, do not arouse love until it desires. There's a time and a place for romance, and doing that too early can be dangerous. And then lastly, misusing the power of romance. Romance is a powerful thing, and it's meant in its proper context, it's a good and beautiful thing, but when it's used elsewhere or outside of that, it can be really dangerous.
When you see romantic relationships in film or TV or in literature, romance can be kind of a toy to play around with to the world in movies. We
live in a broader culture that just says, yep, you can define whatever purpose you want for romance. Like, you can use it however you want,
it's just
however
fun
makes you feel good.
Yeah.
And
it feels good to be loved by someone and have companionship. And it's so much deeper than that.
Yeah. The romantic connection that's made and the spiritual, emotional connection that's made in the sexual union is such a powerful thing that when we try to divorce it from, you know, a long-term committed relationship in marriage, it gets pretty dicey pretty quick, and there's heartache that comes along with that, and it's just not what God has prescribed for his people.
So how old do you have to be to date?
If you really understood the purpose of dating, that it's supposed to move in kind of a marriage direction, I'm just suspect when 15-year-olds start dating. Are you really able and mature enough to be able to support yourself and a spouse in 1 to 2 years' time? Probably not.
Where do you get the 1 to 2 years thing?
Well, it's just kind of, it's a wisdom thing. It's not like, thus saith the Lord.
Right.
But like, if you start a romantic relationship and you want to protect the marriage bed, 1 year, 2 years is quite a long time to go. And as you grow, as you become more intimate relationally, spiritually, emotionally, you know, it has to lead. You got to cross the finish line somewhere, right? Like, you got to.
So what you're saying, the 2 years suggestion you're coming up with, is because it's very difficult to date somebody you love for so long and keep things pure.
Yeah, and again, not just physically, but emotionally, spiritually as well. Like, you don't want to become intimate relationally, and then be like, okay, well, we can't get any more intimate in a relationship because we're not ready for marriage, and you have to put the brakes on it. That just doesn't work.
Right.
And it's not wise. So you're 18, 17, 18, I could see that. It's still pretty young. I mean, but it's doable if it's the right person. But when you're middle school and high school,
you do know some people who did date for years and years and years like that.
Yeah, it's not impossible to do it another way. It's just,
I think it's good to have the guidance of people who really know you, like your parents. Sure. If they're on board, cool. If your church leaders are on board, good. You know, do you have close friends who can keep you accountable and who can tell you, you're dating a crazy person, you should not do that, and listen to them, because they're probably right. So it's not impossible to date young and get married and live happily ever after. That's not impossible, but probably not wise for most people. Mm-hmm. Because it is hard to, you know, you're not supposed to behave in any way like you are married when you're not married. So whether that's the physical aspect of it or the relational, emotional intimacy part of it, are you acting like you are married and you're not married yet? And that's where with dating it gets really tricky, because you may want to get married eventually, but you can't yet. So how do you navigate those boundaries and date with a clear conscience?
Right.
It's tricky stuff. It was
is.
tricky for us.
Yeah.
You know, we didn't do everything perfectly.
No.
But
yeah, it's hard to lay out like hard and fast prescriptions for every single
yeah,
person.
everybody is different, and you need to keep your own conscience clear. Don't sin. Keep yourself from sin. Keep people in your life to hold you accountable.
And again, this is why it's so important to be well connected with other same-sex friends, right? Like, and other older people that can speak into your life. You don't, again, dating shouldn't just be an exclusive relationship in the sense that no one's privy to what goes on behind the scenes. No one's aware of how you guys are interacting.
Yeah.
You know, you want to surround yourself with other people, you know, your parents, and other people that you look up to, as well as peers that will encourage you. So if you have that kind of support behind you and around you, you know, I think
things will be easier.
Yeah.
And better. Okay. Is that it?
I think so.
Nick and Jessica show. Okay, stay tuned for something else. I don't know what. If you liked this video, if you want to hear more of us talking about stuff, like the video, subscribe to this channel, and hopefully, I don't know, maybe we could upload weekly or bi-weekly, one of these kinds of videos. So stay tuned. If you hit the little bell notification thing, then you'll know when a new video comes. And share this video with your friends if you think somebody might benefit from it. But yeah, it's just good to have conversations about these things. You can read about stuff in a book or listen to a sermon, but to actually like have a dialogue and converse about the things that you hear about is helpful too.
Yep.
So that's
Agreed.
what we're here for. And we'll sign out now, and hopefully our kids are still good. They're watching a movie right now.
Take a run with that.
Yep. All right. Bye, everybody.
Tea's really good.